welcome, welcome. The lights are down, which means we've properly started, to our panel discussion this afternoon, which is Disappearing Acts, the art of the temporary. Are we all dark as well? Yeah. Sorry.
You guys are the
This
now.
exactly. Yeah. So we're going to be asking you questions from the dark. Sorry, we're being really cheeky. How are we doing? Do we stay in darkness? Oh, brilliant. Oh, this is brilliant. This is like a proper show. We're all in our comfort zone now. This is the Disappearing Act. We're doing it via the lighting. Actually, this is going to be a panel which we've had really nice chats, and it's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, actually, to be the chair of this panel. And I definitely have imposter syndrome right now because I'm amongst brilliant people that are at the best in their field in what they do, and it's about festival, but it's about performance, it's about craft. And I hope for the next 45 minutes you're going to sit with us and hear three amazing people talk about their practice in relation to not having a technology drive something, but think about audiences, think about experience design, think about the convergence and the convening of people together and what you need to do to hold that. And how important that is actually when we look at these new terms like create tech and technology, actually, these forms where we have brought people together over time and such like that don't change, but actually to make it go seamlessly and to make it go work for audiences and have care around audience, that's actually a huge amount of work goes into that and a whole load of critical care. So we're going to be hearing from three experts in this field about their work and how they do it. And each person, I've got Mair, who's the creative director of Boomtown Festival. I've got Alex from Marshmallow Laser Feast, who's the executive producer, and Angie, who's creative director and CEO of Trigger. All come through a very different lens. And I just hope you'll sit with us and you'll walk away thinking about your own practice, actually, and your own craft and what you do, and because that's what this really is about. And also why festivals matter and why producing and making work in a variety of contexts matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with each person sharing a bit of video about their work and then talking about themselves for a bit. We're going to sort of share some inspirations, though, as well, just so you know. And each person will do that in their own way. So I'm going to start with Alex, if that's all right. Over to you to introduce yourself and let me know when you want me to run your video, because that's a very important job.
Okay, thank you. Is my mic working? Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm executive producer at Marshmallow Laser Feast. I'll say a bit about what we do, and then we've all brought a book recommendation. And of course I have to go first, even though this was your idea. We brought a book recommendation of something that has inspired us or inspired our practice, so I'll say a little bit about that as well. But Marshmallow Laser Feast, we're an experiential artist collective based in London and in Yorkshire, and the work that we make is not bound by technology or form. It's about embodiment, about making the audience deeply feel something, and we often talk about it being where imagination and information collides, because we're often drawing on research, on data, on collaboration with scientists to create stories that might be about decentering the human perspective and connecting you deeply with the perspective of other creatures, or it might be about helping us to reflect on our relationship with food and desire and greed. So we work in multiple formats, and I do have a reel to share that will sort of visualize that a bit more. But first, sorry Sarah, first I'll mention the book that I've brought. I sort of had a bit of a conundrum because these guys are creatives. I am creative. I'm a creative producer, but I probably don't have inspirations in the same way, and it would be very dull if I brought, a management book here to talk to you guys about. So I took myself back to my English literature degree response, and I thought about the book that sort of first started my interest in non-linear storytelling. And it's Calvino's "If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller." If anyone's read it, sort of plays with form, addresses the reader, invites you in and sort of plays with your perspective. And that's, I started my career working with theatre makers like Coney, and then went on to work with Punch Drunk, and it is very Punch Drunk. So thank you for helping me revisit my bookshelf. It's a wonderful book. And now go for showreel. Thanks, Sarah. Something might be going on with the sound, but I feel like we could make it through 60 seconds with the bad sound.
See, this is you told me about this, didn't you? Yes, please. Yeah.
Do you want to stay down here with us?
Yeah. Do you want to? Not particularly. Okay, that's a shame. Not that one, no. That's the other one. Yeah. That's because, yeah. Photocopiers, everything. Yeah. That's why I don't do slides. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm done now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Angie.
Hiya. Am I audible? Yes. I'm Angie. I'm the founding director and creative director for Trigger. I started in 2012. I'm from a theatre background, and I was a bit similarly to you, like really interested in not worrying about the art form and really interested in the audience, the user journey. And now we are kind of known for making large-scale, impactful events that have lasting memories. We're a charity and we're interested in social change. But what does that even mean, and how do you do that with a temporary event? The example in the video that you're about to see is about pollinations, which was a super garden that we transplanted. We planted in a week, and it appeared in the middle of Birmingham city centre, and it lived there for 10 days. And the reason that we made it, and it was made from real plants and architectural plants, and it became a canopy and an outdoor venue, was because at the time of its genesis, this book became really important to me. It's called 80 Trees from Around the World. I started a research and development process. It was during the COVID time. I live in Bristol. Cost and Statue had just been felled. We were on lockdown. I was looking at my phone. People saying things like, if you don't like it, then go home. And I was like, how do I tell this story about British multiculturalism without it just being to my friends? And how do you make it completely inclusive and actually emotionally change people and knit those communities together? And of course, like everyone else in lockdown, if they had a garden, you were gardening it. My gardens never looked so good. And I started to think about the seeds that I was planting. I was reading articles like how to make a quintessential cottage garden. And during the R&D, I met the psychologist, and she said, did you know that 80 to 90% of your garden plants are non-native? And we kind of are used to that now, but I promise you at the time it was really new information, and it was something that I started to speak to RSC and Q, and they were like, we're not there yet to open up this empire conversation. So this was one of the first projects that really put that on the map. And you know, like the conker tree, I've got one outside my window, is from Turkey, and pretty much everything you look at is multicultural. And I spoke to Adverley Richmond, who is she's sometimes on Gardener's World, she's kind of like a star, but I said to her, you know, what would it be like if we didn't have the fertiliser, we didn't have the plants that came from overseas, what would Britain be like? And she said, it would be a scrubland. You wouldn't be able to grow barely anything here at all. So Pollinations became a place of multiculturalism, biodiversity and cultural diversity through the costumes that we had, through the way we invited audiences, and it became an intersectional space. And as an Asian British woman, you've got Mela over here, you've got Pride over here, these siloed, brilliant events. But what I wanted to do with Pollinations is to collide all of that, smash all of that together, and it became quite an emotional charged space, because we had, and also like a space that just changed so much through the day and night, from doing yoga in the morning, meditation in the evening, but then having a light show and more like party vibe events, and in a space that's normally grey and concrete. So you'll see Pollinations in a minute, but imagine it's just grey concrete area where people just walk past. It was never a place, and it isn't a place today that you would lie down in, but Pollinations absolutely changed it. And one of the things I'm most proud of is unexpectedly Birmingham started a petition to keep this garden in the space, because the well-being was really clear. Insects and butterflies and birds were coming in, and communities were convening in a free space that we hadn't before.
The transformation is extraordinary. The work that's gone into it is incredible.
I think it's really relaxing, and I think it's a joy for people to be here.
It's something that interests people, hopefully. City centres need more greenery generally.
Let's take some of the messages from this event and really put them in the heart of our societies.
So Pollinations now is at Glastonbury Festival. It's the new site for the Shangri-La main stage, and it'll be there until 2030. And yeah, that event, 10 days, we had over 150,000 people visit, but it always felt peaceful and a tranquil space.
Gorgeous. Mair.
Thanks. I went to it in Glastonbury and it was amazing. It felt peaceful, even amongst all of that at Glastonbury. Hi, I'm Mair, Morel. I'm the creative director of, you can name me. I'm a creative director of Boomtown. Hands up if you've heard of or been to Boomtown. Great. That makes it way easier. For context for anyone that hasn't, we are a 5-day music and arts festival. Actually, we're trying to work on this name to capture it, but we are an interactive, playable world, parallel world, essentially. And we work all year round on a 5-day pie, so that's really fun. I'll play the video, because I'll talk more about the design in a bit more detail, but just it's quite loud, just prepare yourself. Okay. Great, so that video highlights the sort of game design elements that we have brought into Boomtown and that you can join anywhere, play all weekend or not, which I'll discuss more probably later, but just that we've lent into the game mechanics and using that to really play, and like the power of play in adults is a joy to see. And yeah, that's what I do basically at Boomtown, all of the fun, crazy things.
That's gorgeous, thank you. I hope.
To do the book.
Oh, your book. You can do that at any point. Do you want to do your book now?
I can do the book now.
Yeah.
Sorry. I brought this book, this Rob Hopkins From What Is to What If, because when we were, every year at Boomtown is sort of episodic, or we could like to call ourselves The Simpsons. We start on the sofa and end on the sofa, or begin at Boomtown, end at Boomtown. And we had done a year called the Twin Trail, which was about radical self-acceptance, about healing after lockdown, and then this came at a really opportune time, because once you've healed, can you dare to dream beyond all the doomers narratives? And that's what Rob's talking about, and about making imagination a part of your civic infrastructure. So we need to dare to dream beyond and think about that, but we also need to have the courage to do that. And Boomtown, as a temporary space, facilitates that like parallel world that you can experiment with new futures in. So this is why I brought this.
That's gorgeous. Thank you. What a beautiful introduction. I'm going to open myself up to questions with you. One of the things I wanted to sort of recognise is that you all come through it through a different lens, and your sort of driving forces are all very different. And Alex, I wanted to start with you about you know, when we talk about festival in the context of Marshmallow Laser Feast, it's slightly different in terms of where you place your work, where you situate it, and a lot of the time you are sort of placing innovation in terms of new hardwares and softwares in new places, and that can be quite ephemeral, and the technology changes, and in a way you're reinventing wherever you go, right? And I just wondered if you could talk about what some of those strengths were in doing that, and also some of those challenges.
Yes, great question. So some of the work that we present, it can be hefty in terms of the infrastructure and the hardware that is required. But I think the sort of two spaces that we show work in sort of fairly regularly, or have had sort of small scale commissions from sort of your sort of arts festivals. So we've had co-commissions from those spaces, and often invitations to present works that might be there for sort of a week, a couple of weeks. So for example, In the Eyes of the Animal, which was commissioned in part by Abandoned Normal Devices, I think it was like 10 years ago, was a piece about taking you into the perspective of other species. So a mosquito, a dragonfly, and another animal, I can't remember, and an owl. And that kind of really was a work that kick-started our what we're known for in terms of making works from other perspectives. So I think festivals are spaces where they can co-commission you to make new pieces of work that's about taking a risk and exploring something new, and isn't about permanence and needing to have a business case for something that's going to last for many, many years, is really valuable, that risk-taking space. I think the other side of it that is really interesting to me as a producer and as a world I'm only just beginning to get into is the film festival space. And we've shown work at Cannes, at Sundance over the years, and although you may not always be able to show it in the biggest form that you want to show it, you know, with multiple rooms, total control of the space and so on, you might just be in a sort of small room with a few VR headsets and maybe a spatial sound system. What it allows you to do is showcase to the industry in a really concentrated way, and for a small studio to be able to do that, to meet people who might fund your work, who might distribute your work, that's really exciting, because I think the XR space or the immersive space in film, and that's not all that we do, but it's part of what we do, it sort of feels in an immature market, in terms of the immersive market, that feels like you can sort of, attach yourself on to the film festival infrastructure that's been doing that for a really long time, and use it as a space to kind of accelerate your business. So we were pitching at Venice Film Festival this year and met lots of interesting people, got to understand the kind of European funding that was available for new films in VR and what some of the routes to distribution could be. And that's really important in terms of sustainability for us. So I'd say it's those two spaces, sort of commissioning in terms of being able to take risks and innovate with new forms, and then the kind of business infrastructure that can sit around some festivals as well.
And there's lots of learning there, isn't there? It's just really iterative and, like you say, a nascent world, if you know what I mean, where you're having to, each year it's slightly different in those spaces. Angie, I wanted to sort of draw upon that with you in the different contexts that you work in effectively radically transforming public space. So festival having quite a different context here, but you're dealing with change and you're dealing with iteration in a slightly different way. And it's brilliant that the work is now a new fixture at Glastonbury's Shangri-La. What have you learnt along the way about creating these large-scale immersive pieces that you feel will sort of like drive your, like, how you do it in the future and how you do it next, and for those people that you're working with to think about as well?
Well, my love is really when you go into a space that is not ready for you, not used to you. So, you know, putting a forest like that in Birmingham overnight just transforms how you see your city, what you thought was possible, what your possible aspirations are, what you could be part of. We did a really special career highlight for me was the Hatchling, which was this huge puppet dragon the size of a double-decker bus that we transformed into a puppet with a 20-metre wingspan kite that then flew over sea and transformed in front of the public. We had 30,000 people turn out. They weren't quite expecting it. You know, we'd said this dragon is going to come through your streets for the next 2 days and fly, and people were kept, you know, you could hear people in the street going, yeah, but it's not really going to fly, because we've been to plenty of theatre shows where that's supposed to happen. It doesn't really happen. But when she went up and she went over sea, I remember the next day my Airbnb owner came down in a dressing gown and was like, did you see the dragonfly last night? And this was a space that I've been working in for 3 years, where people said, nothing good happens in Plymouth. Plymouth's rubbish. Can't wait to get out of here. And it kind of, you know, I'm not going to say that everyone's fine now, but if you talk to people in Plymouth about the dragon, people remember it now, and it's become a collective memory, and those collective memories and those shared spaces are something we're lacking. Our high streets are closing. Where do we get together? Where do we get on the same page? Where do we share enjoyment? And where do we get a new sense of identity? You know, so one thing having fireworks on, but this was, you know, this dragon was made in factories in Plymouth. We worked with loads of community groups there. Lots of people were part of that story. We worked with the harbour master, the boat, there were 7 boats that took the dragon out, and there were students who were part of the puppetry of that. So it really became this, we made it. And then when the dragon went on to lead the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, which is a different type of festival, that pride went with it, and you could see on social media people saying, well, that's our dragon, and that's us, and that's why she's off there. So, being able to just blow out what you think can happen in your normal humdrum life and world, and then suddenly be like, oh, right, there's a dragon walking through this morning, is really fun.
How you were talking there just reminds me of what I love about the arts is when we talk about innovation, it is like, how do you make something fly? Do you know what I mean? Your research question is slightly different to a tech world question, and I would love that, like the convergence of like that to be more in our collective imagination when you think about, yeah, you know, you seriously wanted to make that fly, you were committed to make that fly, and it did, and it transformed people at the same point.
And I think that makes me think about R&D and how R&D is valued in a tech world, but not in the theatre world as much. And that is groundbreaking. We had 7 world champion kite flyers who told me on the test flight, once I spent all the money, by the way, that's not going to fly. And then it did. You know, that's groundbreaking. Did we get R&D tax relief? No.
And that's something we need to think about, the harder edges actually of this work. There's a huge amount of rigour, there's a huge amount of imagination, and I think that negotiation with R&D around risk and navigating that actually in a really, you know, again, craft, practice-based way. These are calculated decisions and such like. Mair, you also work with large-scale immersive worlds, and And, you know, from your VT as well, it's about how these audiences move through them, and audiences seem to be at the heart of your practice and things. And just riffing off Angie there, and how do you look through them through your lens of craft and practice, and what have you learned through what you've been exploring with audiences with you?
Yeah, so I've been part of Boomtown since the beginning, so watching the audience is one of my favourite things, like going out and actually getting amongst it and seeing them interact and seeing them play and seeing that shift from pre-pandemic to how I redesigned it for post-pandemic has been quite amazing. It's a 65,000 public, 10,000 crews, 75,000 people over 5 days. So designing at that kind of scale is not scary anymore because I've been doing it, but you know, could be intimidating. So when we do design at that level, so we build a world, well, we actually physically build a world because we, like Angie, go into a field, lay roads, hospitals, water, all of that. That's not my job, thank God. But then we build a fictional world on top of that, so we build all of the sets, and then we build a narrative world on top of that. So you've got to build a world, and then, oh my God, there's a lot to this.
No.
And then
Okay.
you do a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Keep going,
So
because it's important.
okay, so then we've built a physical world, and how we've done that is we've built 6 districts. So all of the districts have their own sort of civic philosophy, their own identity, their own sort of colour palettes, their own design themes. As an example, like Let's Be Avenue, because I love that name, is the sort of town centre. They love to work, like, you know, they're sort of playing town, the postal posse are there, the hotel's there, the Boomtown bobbies are there. It's that sort of civic, normal life. And then you've got Metropolis, which is like bleeding edge tech, kind of like sort of Silicon Valley-esque sort of future thinking. And then Old Town, which is our oldest district, which is sort of like pirates and oldie worldy vibes. So they're like very different districts, but then within them they have their own civic philosophies which play out this sort of light and dark of whatever theme we put on top of that. So we have a name for that, which is, that's the local news. So we have 6 districts all playing their own local game. And then there is the national news, which is the yearly chapter that we choose. So it's the yearly theme. So the Rob Hopkins inspired the Revolution of Imagination year, where we decided to do an election, because obviously when you're thinking about your future, you want to choose who you're voting for. It was also the voting year. It was also a really big year for elections. Like 54 countries went to the polls that year. And we brought in part of Rob's, he did an amazing Ministry of Imagination manifesto, where he got loads of progressive thinkers to put forward-thinking policies into this manifesto. So we borrowed some of those and made them a bit Boomtowny, like no borders at Boomtown in the mind or across dimensions, just to give it a wow. So we have this emotional arc of every year. We have the 6 districts that play it out. We also have like town gossip, so that'll be the little characters, and that can be whatever, because it's organic and you've just got to let it flow. With 65,000 people going through it at all different times, having different journeys, there's an element that you have to just let go, which is also quite a fun element. But what we're talking about, so that's the design of the world and the districts, and then the audience journeys within that. So we cater for 3, we sort of talk about it in immersive theatre terms, so there's skimmers, dippers and divers. And you have to design across all of that space for all of those levels, so that everybody has their own journey, and that's, you know, probably like choose your own adventure book on steroids or something crazy. But they're all getting the same emotional arc of that chapter. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
But the thing I wanted to point out there is that giving those audiences agency to be with you and effectively create with you, and the delight that gives you in the festival environment, because that's organic and iterative, isn't it, over that time?
Yeah, we've called it now organic collaborative narrative, because we're working with lots of crews in developing that. You know, we can't afford and rehearse and do that properly. You have to do it together, and then the audience gets swept up in that, and then there's a lot of joy.
And your audience expects that?
Yes.
And
So now, the success now, so previously, before COVID, there was about 500 people at the closing ceremony that understood the game, and then I was like, this is the wrong way around, so we flipped that, and basically looked at gaming mechanics to the world and like I effectively blew it open. I made it really silly, really fun, dropped down a barrier of entry so that anybody could just play. And it's the playfulness that has really engaged everyone. And now we've gone from like 500 people knowing to 76% of people interacting, playing, and getting involved. And there's layers of stories. So the opening and closing ceremonies are for everyone. So that's the 65,000 like split between 2 stages. And then we have the finale of the story, if you've actually completed it, which is bonkers because it's supposed to be incompletable, but that was about 4,000 people.
I mean, that's just glorious as well,
Yeah.
that you create those frameworks for play, but also how you have a whole community of people that are alongside you with that your own research and development in real time,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, effectively. And I think, again, what beautiful opportunity that is to build and grow, like, beyond, and just what I mean,
Yeah.
and creatively respond to that and have connection.
Yeah, I think there's something beautiful in letting people, I think because it's a temporary city, sorry I'm going on.
It's all good.
Because it's a temporary space, and because we've built a parallel city world, they can come and be someone else, and they're really free, and they can try, like we have a thing called My First Protest, we've sort of named it, and we create these large-scale happenings where people can get involved, and quite often like the skimmers might just get swept up into that, and that might then take them on a journey to be a dipper and interact with someone. But a lot of people will do like a protest at Boomtown, but it'll be like their first experience of protesting, and then they can take that back to the real world, so it's really fun.
That's a safe space.
Yeah, and it's like sandbox,
It's
sort
gorgeous.
of, if you're talking about it in game terms, like they can go and have their own journey.
Thank you, it's brilliant. Alex, we talked about sort of like festivals having a different relationship with Marshmallow Laser Feast, and as sort of like a company that is creating content for pre-existing festivals that you go to. I was thinking about what role do festivals play in your ecosystem? So from your perspective, what do festivals give back to you in your practice and Marshmallow Laser Feast's practice?
I think I'll expand on the point about being able to take risks and try something new, because I think the audiences that you get at some of the film festivals, for instance, is a great mix of industry and audience who are coming to try new things. And they do give us an opportunity to, although it feels sort of, it's high profile, but it's a highly engaged space. So you're taking work to people who are receptive and interested in what you're making. So we had it was a project, but it's had many forms, called Sweet Dreams, which was here at Aviva Studios, it was last year, and ended up being this multi-format installation, screen, linear journey, sort of led by a food mascot called Chicky Ricky, who got you to reflect on your relationship with food and where it comes from. And that was about sort of a few hundred audience per hour, pulsing through this really amazing large-scale venue that you just don't get the opportunity to do in many places. But the first time that we presented a version of that project was potentially 10 years, maybe sort of 8 years before at a couple of places, but one of them was Sundance Film Festival. And in its form then, it was a VR piece. And I tried it out way before I worked for Marshmallow Laser Feast, and it was totally bonkers. It was still called Sweet Dreams, but it was a VR experience in this really sort of juicy pop color world where you were invited in and you were eating real food and drinking food, but the interactions you were having were something like, okay, you're in the VR headset and you're invited by the host to drink the sun, and in front of you is a candy-coloured straw, and you lean forward and a straw does go in your mouth and you drink, and as you drink, you taste sort of orange and cayenne pepper, and the sun begins to squish down and disappear as you drink in all the liquid. And it was totally bonkers and amazing. And I think Robin, who's one of our directors, was the director of it. The great thing about it being at Sundance was lots of people were engaged in the concept. It was really innovative, but the feedback that came back was that in this narrative piece, there was so much going on with the food and the interactive visuals that actually people came away they couldn't remember the story. And so I think that's where the chance to reach a small but highly engaged receptive audience who can be a mixture of public and industry, who are going to be able to give you that feedback and help you test and iterate, is amazing and super helpful.
And that's coming up across all your practice, actually, that you create the conditions for audiences to engage in very deeper ways, potentially, than what I'd call business as usual sort of presentation of work. Angie, I wanted to come back. You touched on it a little bit, but I think it's important about like identity and community through your practice. And we can hear a lot of platitudes around that and such like, and particularly in the context of those social environmental themes actually being felt, not just and embodied, not just sort of like a badge or anything like that. And I just wanted to sort of push a little bit more on that and about how you design for that and how you create the conditions for that.
Yeah, I think, because we talked previously about this question, and there's a lot of St George's flags flying around, right? And
in Birmingham in particular, actually.
In Birmingham, yeah, and I've taken a few down myself. And it's kind of reminds me of it, makes me think, is this a festival of road traffic furniture? Because it's just attached to roundabouts and stuff. But obviously it's a symbol that we do need more collective spaces. Our national identity is in paralysis, it's on the floor. People don't know how to come together on the same, with this polarised kind of way of looking at the world. And I think that's why we need this collective shared narratives, and some of them can be mythical, some of them can be contemporary and new. It's not all about let's teach everyone the empire, but we do need them, and the place to have them could be in theatres. I mean, I'm a theatre fan, I'm from the theatre world, but the best place for me is out in public space, because there's no diversity that is the same as a Iceland queue or I was going to say Sainsbury's queue, but I thought I'd go down to Iceland because maybe that's more. So if we can create those collective moments, then that's kind of our new narrative, and that's kind of our new national narrative. And so I'm interested in what's going to happen in 2027. We've got the anniversary of Windrush and NHS at the same year. Don't steal this. But I want to drive a new project around those two things colliding. Why do they collide? We all love the NHS as a nation. We all know why Windrush happened. How can we tell those stories sensitively, heroically, in a way that brings everyone with us? It's not making anyone feel bad, but makes us understand the rich tapestry of our culture and why we're a contemporary and colourful nation. And my husband's white, and he's like, you are such a nationalist, and I am such a nationalist because I just think Britain's really great, and I think that some of my lefty husband white guys have removed themselves from the story because it's icky, and they're like, England's crap. It's like, no, it's not. It's great. Let's get involved and let's tell our story better. And so for Pollinations, for example, to go meet your question a bit more directly, it was working with the people who run the biggest melon in the country, and they know their audience, they know their identity, and then mixing that up with leaders of Pride, but also just contemporary people like me who aren't like just flying, I'm the head of the tribe. It's like contemporary visions of costumes. So our costume designers were from RuPaul's Drag Race, together with Afro-Caribbean costume makers. So the costumes just turned out to be quite different and something you wouldn't ordinarily see. And they were riffing off books like this about horticulture. So it's just like adding in, keep bringing in different aesthetics. And if it feels a bit stuck, then unstick it. And also not being afraid to go down to the traditional. So one of the projects that we did, we had a hand-painted tuk-tuk, Indian tuk-tuk that served chai, and that's kind of told the story of how tea has come through from India, but it's a British staple drink, and that's turned into a show called Tea Break that's just toured the outdoor festival circuit for the third year and is going out on tour again next year. I think for me, I'm really lucky that when I make work, I can bring in a lot of different freelancers, so I can shake the form and shake the aesthetic and question it. When the dragon flew, it's basically like a firework event. So your automatic thing is to put Beethoven behind it, and it's like, hang on, no, are we falling into a trope here? Are we accidentally going a bit too classical, or because it's about nature? I'm doing a project next year that's very quintessentially English, and just trying to make sure that the doors are open so that everyone feels they're welcome. What I learned about during pollinations is that nature is white for some reason. Kew Gardens is white. Don't put that on film and don't sue me or anything. But why? Because obviously it's not. Think about nature is not white. But when you're putting together your articles about the quintessential, it all starts to feel in that way, and the music you put behind something like that. So it's questioning those choices and bringing in new people to like fluff it up and just bring it to now, because we are all normal and contemporary. For some reason, culture just kind of sometimes just looks back a bit and gets a bit old, and dated. And
that's brilliant. I'm conscious we're drawing to sort of like the end of the session, and I wondered. No, not at all. I'm just sort of going to sneakily go. Does anyone have any questions? Whilst I ask an unprompted question that the panel have not prepped for, if that's all right. So if you have any, just sort of cheekily put your hand up. If you don't, that's fine, because I'm just making sure we run to time. But I wanted to ask all three of you, and we haven't prepped this, but I think it's really an important question, which is, what are you most proud of? And I'll start with you.
Yeah, okay, I've got the mic. Most proud of at Boomtown is to do with it being temporary. It's to build a world that's temporary that creates a lasting shift in someone when they go away. And we have so much feedback these days. Somebody found me on LinkedIn. Someone put it through an anonymous feedback survey that Boomtown has changed their life for the better, that they have gone off and done different things, and like, if that temporary world for 5 days can then shift someone's life for a positive, that's my jam, basically. That's why I do it.
It's not shit, is it?
That's good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing thing to be proud of.
Yeah.
Angie.
Yeah, I'm going to steal something that you said to me at breakfast, which was like, temporary events create emotional shifts. And my drive with the dragon was that the dragon's from the East, Chinese dragon. I was living in China for 4 years, and kites invented in China, and then the Western dragon is something you want to kill. And so I was really interested to like meld this together and make it an other that comes into your city, and for the city to change its mind about that. And I just think practicing a change in emotion in yourself through therapy, or changing your mind is really important. Get that neuroplasticity, it's not sticking to your own argument, but changing the emotion of a whole city or a whole body of people. I think I've done that a couple of times, maybe twice, and it's extremely amazing, and it just pulls people together a little bit more. How long it lasts, I couldn't tell you, but it is very, very amazing when that happens.
Thank you.
I've got this is a heart response, a quick response. So it's actually, I was trying to, what sprung to mind it isn't a piece I've done with Marshmallow Laser Feast. So I just thought back to when I worked with Punch Drunk, and I was sort of hands-on producing. We had an amazing opportunity to be in residency in a care home through an amazing charity called Magic Me, who are all about bringing the arts and culture into care home contexts. And we did a residency over several weeks where we created a sort of non-linear, interactive, episodic kind of soap opera that happened in a village green that had taken over the living room in this care home in Peckham. And we were working with people who were sort of end of life, had various stages of dementia, and it was all about creating different touch points and routes into the story, whether it was about the simplest thing like coming along to flower arranging, or whether it was about following the gossip that was happening from the neighbouring village who we had a connection through with the phone box week by week. And I would, in my career, I would love to do more of that sort of immersive theatre, participatory stories for good. And the metric of what success looks like in that context is so different, because it's not about the ticket sales, it's not about the 5-star reviews, it's about whether Peter can recall what he did with you the week before, and whether he's got more of a bounce in his step as he comes to his session with you a week later. And yeah, I think that is definitely one of my proudest moments.
That's
making that
gorgeous.
piece.
I hope you will see how brilliant our practitioners, Mair, Angie, Alex are, and their craft and what they do, and also placing artists at the centre and audiences at the centre of that work, and the sense of possibility you can have in transforming moments that are ephemeral, that are for a moment and then go away, but also have a lasting legacy with those who experience them, and an absolute ripple effect of impact on those that have experienced them and those that share that story themselves, for that, and how important that is when we look at technology, how important that is when we place these new tools or whatever we're thinking about, that there's a deep, rigorous craft around how artists approach the world. And what a glorious 45 minutes. Thank you so much. And let's do that round of applause bit.